Yeah, I'll be completely honest, I almost forgot to review this movie, and this is one of the better movies on my catch-up list to review. Though I still maintain, it's just okay. It's a new Amazon Prime sci-fi slasher comedy film written by David Madelon, Sasha Pearl Raver, and John D'Angelo, and directed by Natasha Khan. Which, saying that out loud, should remind me how much this movie offers in terms of ideas. Not the names of the people, I meant this slasher, sci-fi comedy, whatever. So what the movie is about is that it's a slasher film with a time travel twist, though saying that out loud too. It gets my mind racing with my own ideas what to do with this premise. But I should just say what happens in this movie. So in the small town of Vernon, where in 1987, 3 teenage girls were all killed only a couple days apart on their 16th birthdays, stabbed 16 times and the killer was never found, dubbed the Sweet 16 Killer. And in the present, Jamie Hughes, played by Kiernan Shipka, is the teenage daughter Pam Miller, played by Julie Bowen, who still lives in fear since she was friends with all the victims, which she doesn't take seriously until an unexpected death and his/her return spells doom. So Jamie ends up using her friend's time machine, because her friend was making a time machine for a science fair project based on her mom's notes. More on this later. And goes back in time before the murders, where she meets her teenage mom, played by Olivia Holt, and the victims, who were a group of mean girls in high school. Jamie will try in her power to change the past before her present could get any worse. I will say, I enjoyed the movie despite its flaws. It had a consistent tone, so between the slasher kills and the time travel, it plays it straight, and sure, it's like a little ludicrous go, you had a time machine? Well, it's like, yeah, it just coincidentally they got working, so all this to happen. It's not like she goes back in time on purpose. So it's like, oh, well, as long as I'm here, maybe I can make this work in my favor, you know? And it didn't really bother me in terms of like, oh god, but this doesn't add up. If you did this, it should be this. Time travel rules. It never really bothered me. It's honestly one of the most least frustrating stories in terms of how does time travel work I've seen in a while, so I'll give it that. With that being said, I enjoy the movie despite its flaws. It doesn't treat its story as a joke, more so its characters who, I'll just say it, I knew from the start who the killer was and why, though when it's revealed to be someone else, a certain reference made me know which direction this movie would go after that with its twist. Also, while I think the acting is good, the actors during the 80s took me back a bit to buy they actually grew up in this era, since it's quite a diverse group of 80s bullies. And listen, I don't want to like take away anyone's opportunity for a role, I'm just saying it's like, yes, you were all 80s mean girls. Uh-huh. Oh, you know, it's actually another thing about them. It's like, none of them look like they actually even grew up in the era either, because they all had their hair done in a way that I'm like, yeah, you would never style your hair that way. But that's nitpicking. I think my fair criticism comes to the references, which made my eyes roll, and the forgettable jokes, which I don't remember a single joke for this movie, honestly. I don't. I think, okay, what was the joke? I think I kind of laughed at maybe how the girls are like, you know, Jamie's like, don't let people treat you this way, be a strong woman, and they're like, I don't give a shit. It's like, okay, that made me laugh. But I know, and again, I know I laugh, but this movie's just okay, and it could have been more. But that being said, I like the characters. I think Kiernan Shipka shines as Jamie, and the cast and crew have fun with the era and its ludicrous concepts, even if it's not much of a standout film. I had a good time with it, and I know I would not have a problem watching it again. So, overall, a good time, but nothing killer. I give Totally Killer a 6 out of 10. So, The Mill, a new exclusive Hulu science fiction thriller written by Jeffrey Davis Thomas, directed by Sean King O'Grady, and starring Lil Ray Howery. What could go wrong, I guess, maybe? Look, it's not a good movie, I'll just say it straight up, I think this is probably going to be my top 10 worst films of the year. Maybe. Look, honestly, this is just a pretty forgettable movie, so I better write this down since, honestly, this has the easiest comparison to point out its major flaw, that being its pacing, where something like The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, not a second felt wasted or too long. This movie feels like a Twilight Zone episode that someone thought could have been its own movie. And even then, if it was around the Twilight Zone during one of the revivals or the fourth season, it would even feel stretched out even at an hour long. But it could have worked. And I'm not saying it, I don't know if I could have made this work. Maybe it could have. I can't pretend like I'm a genius who knows how to make this work. But it just doesn't. So the premise is that Lil Ray Howery, or his character's name Joe, wakes up in a strange room with no roof over his head, walls without an open door, and a mill in the middle to push or else die like a dozen others off screen who are in the same situation, without a clue or a good reason why. But he has to, because that's what, he works for a company called Mallard, which is the in-between of Amazon and Aperture Laboratories from the horror games, where Joe is given confusing roles and shown snippets of the life he had outside to motivate him to keep working or else die before he can see his family again. As the days go by, or weeks, to, take away a sense of hope and just keep working for obvious metaphor. So, I'll start off with this. The movie feels way too stretched out. Like, I want to say that at first it makes me go, yeah, I feel the grind and hopelessness of the main character, but the time spent inside doesn't come across as months. It felt like a week. Like, oh man, I felt each day going by, but it's portrayed as, oh my god, weeks are going by, you're missing out on so much life. How can it be this long? It's like, yeah, that's probably not what's happening. Because each solution of him getting out of the situation in between that time felt repetitive. It could have been done once and be contained as a short story, i.e. a Twilight Zone episode. At a certain point, I got so bored. I played Angry Birds on my phone during a commercial and didn't notice the movie playing, and I wish if I were a lesser man, I would have been on my phone the whole time. Because this is a background movie where if I skip 30 minutes of this movie, I miss nothing, and I mean it. Another major flaw of the movie, and I'm sorry for saying this, Lil Ray Howard is such a miscast in this role. He is a producer of this movie, and I get it's meant to show off his skills. But while I do enjoy him in many other sometimes dramatic works, I guess, and something like Get Out, where, yeah, he's still the comedic side character, I really liked his emotional scenes in that movie, or even something like Free Guy. He just doesn't feel compelling or nuanced enough for being a main character, let alone this type of character who's supposed to be struggling just to get by each day, and without... Look, it's hard to say, like, oh, would I have done such a bad performance? Probably not, but it could have just been me. I think there are so many other people that would have been better. Oh, God. Something like in the Haunted Mansion reboot, I think Lakeith Stanfield would have knocked him out of the park. He gave such a too good for that movie performance. He would have been perfect for this movie. I think it would have definitely raised this movie to just okay, if it would elevate it by him being there as the lead. Because, goddamn, you need a better actor than this guy. I didn't even know what to think by the time the movie was over, since it does this twist ending that was the easiest way out of it. And I had like 10 ideas in my mind, like, oh, they could have done this more interesting, or okay, you could have done this ending, but do this spin on it to make it more interesting that way. But this movie is stretched out. It's boring and too misguided, where what it could have said been more efficient if it was shorter and has a better lead. Here, it goes on for way too long and isn't compelling in the slightest. So watching this movie itself is a grind, especially when it could have worked out, but it doesn't. I give The Mill a 3 out of 10.